I'm Victor Vogel. I'm the author of Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While You Travel, and Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone, which is the primary book that I've written on protection. Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While You Travel really is a book that I developed in a checklist format, much like pilots use before they take off, pre-flight checklist. With that thought in mind, basically the idea is to kind of prepare yourself and walk through a checklist of stuff you need to do before you travel, and particularly before you travel internationally today, so that you can be more secure and safe during your travels. Now, this video will be a blog, and I'm probably going to do many of my blogs, if not all of them, in the future as videos, because you can, in fact, deliver a better message via the video than you can the written format. What I'd like to do in this particular video is just introduce you to a series of videos coming up that I'm going to do relative to my book, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone While You Travel. And by the way, I will leave a link that you can get to that book and buy it on this blog, as well as in my YouTube descriptions. You'll find those. That link to be able to buy the book. The book's inexpensive enough, really, where you could buy it every time you want to travel, because in it you will be logging. It has a place for you to log information that you need. It's easy to slide into a briefcase or a suitcase or even a purse in some cases, to be able to have it to refer to while you're on the road. So just some information about that. Now, so why is it even necessary? Why do I feel like you need to have some information about protecting yourself or preparing for security on your trip? Let me take just a moment and review a video here. In this video here, this is an aftermath of the London Bridge bombing that happened this month in June 2017. As you can see, the police are telling these people to get down, but these people, you have to actually imagine yourself, do you ever anticipate being in this situation? If you are in fact a person that is traveling into a foreign country and this happens to you, there are so many things associated with this that you may not understand or be able to cope with, because you haven't pre-thought it. You haven't thought out the potential of you being actually in a situation like this. And I'm sure there are people in that restaurant that may be visitors to the UK that didn't anticipate being in the middle of a terrorist attack. And you can go to a lot of different other places and find that same situation. So what I want to emphasize here is don't go on a trip thinking that this could not happen to you. You want to take the other approach and believe that it could happen to you, and simply go through as much preparation and planning to cope with that. And let's just talk about some things associated with if it did happen to you. First of all, you're not going to have time to think through what to do at that point in time. That's not the time to try to figure out what you need to do. You need to be reacting. You will be reacting. In fact, you will be reacting in a way that's either creating the feeling of needing to fight, or you're going to take flight to save yourself. And those are natural human instincts, and people tend to think that, and particularly people who have never been in a violent encounter before, they tend to think that they're going to rise to the occasion. I'll be able to fend off those people if they attack me. When in fact, if you look at a lot of the news reels that are shown after the attack, you're going to find, in a vast majority, you found it here, people start running, they start fleeing to save their life, and you saw that also in Dallas during the Black Lives Matter march. People started fleeing, and these are people who literally had AR-15s strapped to their backs in protest of gun laws that were in that march. And they fled. They ran from the scene with their guns on their backs. So, what's going to happen? I'll try to explain this a little bit so you understand. You think you will rise to the occasion, but in fact, during the situation, which is very intense, and your blood pressure is raised, and a lot of physical things are happening to you at that time, including your mental judgment, you're really only going to rise to the level of your training to deal with a situation like this. And think about this. How many people do you know that have actually trained for what they would do in a violent encounter or a terrorist attack? I'm willing to bet a whole lot that it's not very many people. In fact, a lot of people train, for example, for tornadoes. In Oklahoma, people train consistently. They have drills for tornadoes and fires, okay? And they have those drills in school. They may have them at your work in Oklahoma or in states like Texas and Kansas, where tornadoes are prevalent. Okay, but in fact, the reality, if you check history of tornadoes in Oklahoma from the time back in the, I think it was 1890s or late 1800s when they started recording tornadoes, to the time that today, there have been more people killed by gun violence in Oklahoma than were ever killed by tornadoes. Yet we don't take any time to prepare ourselves or train for violent attacks. So, and that's just an example of some data that really kind of supports what I'm saying. So why would I want you to think about preparing for a violent attack? And the answer is, even though nothing, absolutely nothing can be guaranteed that you're going to be 100% protected and secure wherever you are. The fact is, if you have some knowledge about what's going on in terrorist activity, how they operate, you can prevent either being within the parameter or purview of a terrorist attack, or afterwards, if you happen to be in a terrorist attack, and like in London, if you happen to be international and you run and you, for fear for your life, and you happen to leave your purse behind, and your purse has in it all of your credit cards, all of your information, your driver's license, your passport, everything, and that gets taken out of the restaurant, and you come back and you cannot find that. Do you know what to do? Do you know where to go? Have you made pre-arrangements to make sure that you can get to who you need to get to reissue your passport quickly, to reissue your credit cards quickly, and to cancel all of the other stuff? These are things that you could pull that book out, and all of a sudden you can find the numbers of the places you need to call. You can find the numbers of or you can find the information for canceling your credit cards. You can contact your embassy for your passport. And in fact, if you've pre-registered your trip with the embassy, it'll go much, much faster and easier. So these are things that I am betting the vast majority of people have no idea they should register their trip with the State Department before they go over, and how easy that is to do online. So these are things I want to cover with you in the upcoming videos. I think you're going to find this information very useful, very helpful in the future. So I will be, here's kind of what we're going to be covering in the videos. First of all, we're going to be talking about documentation. Documentation you should take with you, how much documentation, what kind of documentation you should leave at home, and things like password codes that you should leave with your friends at home in case something does happen to you, God forbid, like a kidnapping. Americans are targets in foreign countries by terrorists for kidnapping because that's how they fund a lot of their activities. So there are things that you can do, things you need to be thinking about in those lights. So documentation is important, and then we want to talk about hotel security, how you can better secure yourself in the hotel, how to select a hotel that will work for you, and what you need to do to secure the right accommodations for wherever you're going to be. We'll also talk about transportation security and some of the issues you need to be thinking about relative to transportation. You know, it amazes me. I was an Uber driver for 3 years, and you know, I like Uber. I think Uber is a good model 90% of the time, but I will tell you this, that even though they do security checks, they are the basic business security check that does not go in depth and does not cover the full scope of the whole country the person lived in and the states a person has lived in. That kind of in-depth security background would be cost prohibitive for Uber and the tens of thousands of people. So when you climb in a car, you know, I'm amazed at the number of people who climb into a car with a stranger to ride with them on the premise that Uber said they did a background check. So that's true, but that's not only true about Uber, it's true about taxi cabs, it's true about anything except primarily limousine services, and we'll cover that in the issue. In addition to transportation, we're going to cover emergency situations, what kind of information you need to know about emergencies, because I'm not just talking about terrorist activity. It can be criminal activity. It can be natural disasters like the earthquakes in Italy if you happen to get caught in one of those. We're going to talk about you know, do you know the emergency numbers? Do you know the locations of the closest hospitals? Things like that that you'll need to know. We'll go through that checklist when we come through the time. In addition to that, insurance is very important. Health insurance, knowing about your health insurance and what it'll cover, etc. And also if you might need supplemental insurance. And I'll tell you right now, if you happen to be in that terrorist attack and you're an American, if you were an American and you were injured severely and put into the hospital, but you ended up either having to stay in that hospital for a month and a half, or be transported transport airvac back to the United States, those costs are normally not covered by standard insurance companies that you have your insurance with, medical insurance. So things like that we want to show you where you can look for information like that. And also, by the way, kidnap insurance. So we're going to talk a lot about that, and we're also going to talk a little bit about kidnapping because there are a variety of kidnap situations that don't necessarily entail you being taken by as a victim. There are other ways that people have found with technology today to kidnap you and or take and demand large sums of money, and in some cases even small sums of money. So it's no longer the very rich and wealthy that will be kidnapped. It could be any American who is traveling abroad. The kidnappers can assume an American traveling abroad have a couple thousand or $3,000 or more in their bank account to pay for the trip, or they have the ability to get the money somehow. So anyway, this is the information I want to cover over the next few series of blogs, and these will also be on YouTube, these videos. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll watch these. I hope you will take them to heart. I hope you will buy the book and use it as a checklist every time you travel, particularly if you're traveling internationally, whether it's for business or security. You know, it's kind of like I said, pilots use these to prepare for emergencies, because when the emergency happens, they will not have time to kind of put these things in place. It's happening at that point. They're reacting. So you take something out of their playbook and put it to use for you, and use this book as a checklist to get you started on identifying. You may think of some other things that you may need to add to that, and that's just fine. I think the back page of the book is blank, and you can write them on that and make your own checklist for future events. And if you happen to, you can even email me, and I'll update my book over the course of time with input you provide me. So these are just a few things that I am going to try to provide you that I hope will be beneficial, that will keep you safe and secure, which is the reason I wrote both of my books, Creating a Bad Guy Free Zone, How the Average Citizen Can Protect Themselves, which talks a lot about terrorists and criminal activity and how they operate and what you need to do to have a personal protection plan for not just your home, but everywhere you go. And also how, creating a bad guy free zone while you travel, which is the emphasis of these videos. So until the next time that we meet, keep in mind, this is Victor Vogel, and I will be creating bad guy free zones out there.